Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on. Hey gang, before we get started, I'm going to do what I want to do so many times on my channel. I want to share a video of my friend Gus's band. I like sharing music with you guys. I hope you enjoy that as well. Very cool band, very cool song. It's called Faith in Me. The name of the band is Murder, and they are located right here in Western New York, so if you are ever out and about, go check them out. So stick around at the end of the video for their video. Hope you enjoy it. Stayed in touch with my psych ward friend by extra rate 8522. A few months ago, I was in the youth psych ward due to depression. I met a girl who would always listen and be super nice to me, but also tell me unsettling things like having abused animals in her childhood, being able to turn her empathy off, wanting to kill her parents, and stuff like that. I was bored and suicidal, thrilled by this unique friendship and thinking nothing of it since we were locked in there anyway. However, soon after my release, she successfully contested her court order and was discharged against medical advice. We continued to text after that, and I realized I was the only person she could confide in and felt bad for her. She would tell me about how bad she was doing and about her suicidal thoughts, until one day she sent a voicemail telling me she was planning a whole rampage to kill all the people that had wronged her. Alarmed, I went to the police, who, after questioning me, paid her a visit. They called me and said they didn't think she was a danger at all and was probably just angry when saying that. Naturally, she concluded that it was me who had betrayed her, but I tried my best to convince her it had been probably my parents who had checked my phone and reported it, and she at least pretended to believe me. Fast forward to today. I suddenly noticed a photo she had sent without any context. When I clicked on it, my jaw dropped. It showed her posing with bloody hands and face, a lighter in her hand and a burning stove in the background. I concluded the worst and went to the police. After further questioning, they told me they had already known about it and that she had caused a decent fire in an apartment block and smashed some windows after a fight with her parents. Fortunately, no one besides her was hurt. They thanked me for providing them with further proof and told me that she would probably go back to the psych ward. When I left the interview room, I honestly couldn't believe my eyes when I saw her, sitting in the hallway looking at the floor. Our gaze met, and I think we were equally shocked before I quickly walked away. I feel like I'm in deep trouble. Eventually, she'll be released again, and there's no denying now that I snitched on her. I have no trust in the judicial system's judgment anymore, and the policeman told me she might be a danger to me, but she'll be locked up for a while now, and if the smallest thing happens, I can just call 911. This is your sign to not stay in touch with the suspect psych ward friend, because that story might not end well, but I hope mine does. My Childhood, submitted by Aaron. I grew up in a Christian family, and I myself am Christian at 27 years old. My family moved into a house in Harrisburg, Oregon, back in 1994. In the second story of my house, my parents found in one of the bedrooms a lot of witchcraft books and drawings. I was born later in 1996. Shortly before I was born, that room had an unexplained fire. My dad rebuilt the house as he was a contractor. I grew up having weird dreams and the same nightmare over and over. I slept in the room across the hall where these incidents occurred. There was a bedroom at the end of the hall, and in my dreams I would wake up, open my door, and be chased down the stairs in slow motion by something I can only describe as a demon. I have that dream to this day, and I'm 27 now. What really started my belief in the paranormal was not a dream. I was about 9 or 10 years old and was sleeping on the couch in the living room one night. I woke up and went to get something to drink, and when I got to the opening from the living room to the hallway that led to the back of the house, I saw a tall, dark figure just standing there. I was terrified for sure and decided to go back to bed. For some reason, there was an instant connection that I still can't explain. Fast forward 8 years, and I saw the same thing at a friend's house after provoking it. We were in his barn, and I was talking shit trying to get something to happen. And unfortunately, something did happen. The wind started blowing, and the only way I could describe it was this black shadow flew in the open barn door, and then disappeared. The wind stopped. That's the only 2 times that I've ever seen this thing. And I've learned not to be afraid of it, but I still can't explain it. I found my relationship with God, and all is good. I Came Face to Face with a Murderer by Careless Temporary 84. In 2002, when I was 16, my parents went on vacation. While they were gone, I stayed at my older sister Lisa's apartment with her and my 8-year-old niece Sarah. It was during fall break, so Sarah and I were out of school, and since it was only a 2-bedroom apartment, Lisa let me sleep in Sarah's room, and Sarah slept in Lisa's room with her. On this particular morning, Sarah and I had both slept in. She was so excited that I was staying with them, she wanted to stay up all night watching Disney movies, so we did. Lisa had fallen asleep on the sofa, so I picked Sarah up and put her in Lisa's bed, and then I went to bed myself. The next morning, I woke up to a man's voice. Lisa's boyfriend, Gary, had a very recognizable deep voice, kind of like Vin Diesel. But this voice wasn't Gary's voice at all. This voice was an older man, and he sounded very agitated. I went into the living room to see who was there, and I saw the man sitting on the love seat closest to the front door, and Lisa was sitting in a chair adjacent to the love seat. He looked to be in his 60s, and his shirt and jacket were nearly covered in blood splatter. She shot a fearful, surprised glance at me as if she had forgotten I was there. The man stopped talking once he noticed Lisa had looked away from him. I made eye contact with him, and he smiled. Then he placed the gun that he was holding onto the coffee table in front of him. I couldn't move. I didn't know what to do. My first thought was to get between him and Lisa somehow. But I knew I had to stay where I was because he would get past me and get to the bedroom where Sarah was still sleeping. I searched the man's face, trying to figure out who he was. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. And he broke the silence. "Hey, I didn't know anybody else was here. I'm Eddie, Gary's stepdad." I faked a smile and gave a weak wave, and he took out a cigarette and lit it. Lisa was still sitting on the sofa, seemingly bracing herself for whatever Eddie had planned. Eddie motioned for me to sit down on the bigger sofa across from him. I did as he said. He took out a bag of weed and some rolling papers and began to roll a joint. "You smoke, youngster?" he asked me. Lisa spoke up. "No, he doesn't. That's my baby brother. He's only 16. Eddie laughed, looked at Lisa, then me, and said, "Damn, what the hell are you feeding these kids? That's a big motherfucker." Lisa laughed nervously, and Eddie joined her, seemingly unaware of how uncomfortable we were. "Oh, shit," he said. "I got sidetracked. Let me finish telling you what this bitch did, Lisa." Eddie went on to tell Lisa that he had just shot and killed a woman he knew because she stole $100 from him the previous night after he passed out drunk at home. He said he knew it was her because he had pistol-whipped Gary's mother and made her tell him who went through his wallet while he slept. He then told Lisa he regretted not killing Gary's mother because he felt like she had set him up. He also said he'd shot the woman's husband but was unsure if he was dead. He laughed and he said he knew for sure the woman was dead because her head exploded like a watermelon. My stomach was in knots. I was sweating and I could no longer hide my fear. I heard Lisa's bedroom door open, and from where I sat, I saw Sarah walking across the hallway into the bathroom. Eddie looked in the direction of the hallway and said, "Damn, Lisa, who else is here?" Lisa spoke quickly. "It's Sarah. Please, Eddie, you know I don't allow smoking around her. Can you get out on the patio with that?" Lisa's voice trembled, and Eddie must have heard the fear in her voice because he replied, "Girl, what are you scared of? I ain't gonna do nothing to you. You're good people. I just wanted to come see you before I go. You know, the police is probably looking for me by now, but I just couldn't leave without seeing my favorite spades partner." Eddie smiled as he stood up and gathered his bag of weed, the joint, and gun. I heard the toilet flush, then the sound of water running in the bathroom. I began to pray that Sarah wouldn't come out here before he left. And Eddie must have read my thoughts because he said, "Don't worry, young blood. I'm going to get on out of here before that baby can see me like this." Lisa and I both stood up as he walked to the door, and she opened it for him, and he walked out. We watched through the window as he got into his car and drove away, and Lisa quickly grabbed the phone and called 911. Sarah came out of the bathroom and asked if the scary man was gone. Lisa said yes and hugged Sarah. Sarah began to tell me she never liked Eddie because he acted strange and looked scary. When she heard his voice on the way to the bathroom, she stayed in there because she didn't want to come out and see him. I was pacing back and forth trying to process what had just happened. Lisa told me that Eddie was a drug addict and an alcoholic. Gary's mother had kicked him out, but he would keep popping up at her house, and she was already aware that Eddie had attacked Gary's mother because Gary had called to tell her, though they didn't know he'd killed anyone when he came to Lisa's house. Eddie was arrested shortly after our encounter, and we had to talk to detectives. They told us the man he had shot had died on the way to the hospital. And it took years for me to forget the way he gleefully described killing that woman. He died in prison, not long after he was convicted of the murders. My Real-Life True Scary Story by Seal of Disapproval. This happened to me a number of years ago, and I've never forgotten. One night as I was lying in bed trying to get some sleep, my black cat Sabrina scratched at my bedroom door to be let out. Tired but mostly awake, I slipped out of bed and shuffled to my door and let her go out. However, she looked at me and guided me to the side door to go outside. I went to the door and opened it, then pushed the screen door out of the way so she could leave. However, after I closed the screen door, I happened to look out across the way, which happens to be the side of my neighbor's house. In the driveway, blocking a bit of their house, was my dad's 1995 Chevy, a truck. On the other side of my dad's truck, I saw a strange figure standing by the hood. I could only see its shoulders and up above. It had a larger head than its body, and from what I could see, its neck was thin, and its shoulders were bony looking. Whatever it was had two large empty eye sockets where eyes should have been, but weren't. They were pitch black like two voids against this thing's pale skin. Now the rest of the face I could never forget. It looked like the upper half of its face was covered in skin, and the lower it went towards its jaws, it looked like shredded skin. Where the jaw was located was complete bone, and it had a wide, toothy grin as it just stood there and seemed to be looking right at me. Mind you, I wear glasses to see distances, and I thought maybe I was seeing some kind of blur of the bushes or something from the neighbor's house. So I squinted my eyes to get a better look, and that made it worse. I saw even more details of the creature than I did before squinting. Everything about its appearance became more clear and detailed. The texture of its skin, the wrinkles, the bits of torn-up-looking flesh. There was no mistaking what I was looking at now. Terrified, I closed the side door and locked it. I was breathing heavily as my heart raced in my chest. Even then, I tried to reason with myself that maybe what I saw wasn't real. But I couldn't shake it. I know what I saw. Still scared, I ran into my room and jumped into bed. I was in my 30s, yet I took my blankets and hid under the covers like a kid. After all these years, I suddenly felt the way I used to as a child when I woke up to vivid nightmares. The fear of not being able to escape the horrors of my imagination, and that feeling of being completely alone and vulnerable, even though my parents were across the way in their bedroom. As I hid under the blankets, I suddenly heard long, continuous scratches on my wall by where the creature had been seen. It was like it was in my room and running a nail along my bumpy bedroom wall. I could hear the nail lightly thump each time it hit them. My panic grew, and I felt more and more at the mercy of childhood trauma. I started to cry and tried to talk myself out of this fear that gripped me. Maybe this thing fed on fear, I thought to myself. Maybe it was getting a rise out of me and using my fear for its enjoyment. I tried to calm down and told myself that everything was okay. And as I was starting to relax, the scratching finally stopped, and everything was quiet. Suffice it to say, I don't ever want to see that thing again, and I try and convince myself that I was seeing things. But the next night, as the cat wanted to go outside again, and I reluctantly looked in the location of where the creature had stood behind the hood of my dad's truck, there was nothing in the area that looked like the creature at all. That's when I settled with myself that what I saw was real, and that realization scared me all the more. I never want to see that thing again, and I hope it never comes back. The Swaying Person by Anonymous. Right off the bat, I want to say that this incident is one of few that have truly stuck with me. Although this took place in January of the previous year, it definitely keeps me awake at night. It seems surreal to me that so many weird things happen to people on a daily basis, but I never imagined them happening to me. Anyway, I was staying abroad due to college, and there wasn't a single thing that had irked or creeped me out. I lived in a relatively populated area. There were a lot of young women in my apartment, and even older women, so you could say I felt safe in my own home. Walking the streets was also safe since there were always people around. There were apartments, parks, houses, those full-time 7-Elevens, and some small cafes. I'm pretty sure there was a small motel, too. But regardless, that should create a pretty decent image of the area for you. Although the university taught lessons in English for all the foreign students, I still wanted to learn the language to respect and experience the culture. It was fun, and I made quite a few friends in those classes. But one day, I was walking to a convenience store from class, and I remember being quite dazed and tired. It was around 8 p.m., and the class had ended a while back, but since I had the once-in-a-lifetime of leisure time, I decided to explore the place. I knew my way around, and I was feeling pretty confident about the routes and all, and as time passed, I walked and reached this giant road with some empty plots to the right. Don't get me wrong, it was still a residential area, and I could even hear noises from a couple of houses. But this is where it gets a little weird. There's a bunch of houses, but as you kept walking towards the city with all the hustle and bustle, there was this entire secluded area of just road and streetlights. The convenience store was still like 4 kilometers away. I was feeling uncomfortable and very nervous too because of a previous incident I had had. So I decided to stop and look around. There was nothing, but I decided to start jogging, while looking side to side, and backwards a little too. Not even 30 seconds passed, and I bumped into someone. I had a feeling of dread rush all over me, and my hair stood up. My palms started shaking, and I didn't even lift my head up to see who it was. I started apologizing like crazy, simultaneously backing away and getting ready to fucking bolt out of there like I was in the Olympics or something. The person I bumped into came in front of me and started walking towards me in little steps and started moving in this weird swaying motion. It was almost like a cartoon, and while they were swaying, the person just said, "What the fuck? What are you? Are you okay?" It was all in this arrogant tone. I say it was a person because I genuinely couldn't tell if the person was a man or a woman. Their face was covered by a surgical mask, and they wore a large hoodie with sweatpants. His voice was sort of muffled, but it didn't sound masculine nor feminine. The person started swearing and doing this weird swaying motion while reaching into their pants pocket. I saw a glimpse of something shiny, and my instincts that just previously had conveniently died out kicked back in. I immediately fled, and I went to the store and told the clerk. They called the police, who went back to where this had happened, and found 2 fucking shoes on the same spot. And along with the shoes was the mask, apparently, that the person had been wearing. I never found out who it was, what they wanted, and how I never saw them lurking around in those empty plots. I mean, there were no bushes, and the light wasn't that scarce either. Anyway, I'm glad I'm safe. Truck Stops, Haunted or Portals to Hell, by Anonymous. I worked in the truck stop industry for about 15 years. All the following stories took place at the same location. I worked there for less than 18 months, and if people are interested, I have other stories at other locations, but this one had the most frequent occurrences of weird stuff that happened. I was given the opportunity to help open this brand new location, and since it came with a fat raise and a promotion, I definitely accepted. It's now been about 5 years since the location opened, and I don't believe there is a single employee left that was there when we opened, of the over 60 employees we hired prior to that opening day. On opening day, not long after the ribbon-cutting ceremony, a woman delivering flowers dropped the flowers on her sandaled foot and sliced her foot open, bleeding all over the entrance. Within a week of being open, we had water and sewage coming up through all the drains, including sewage ones outside all over the property. It hadn't been raining. It wasn't like a flood situation weather-wise, and we have no idea what caused it to suddenly happen. And just as quickly as it happened, it went away. All the plumbers were baffled. A couple of months after we opened, we faced a severe storm that destroyed the high-rise interstate sign and caused a 7-hour power outage. I had sent several people home, but I had kept a couple of employees on in case the power came back. As we sat in the restaurant dining room chatting under electric lantern light, an employee who was a local resident and had lived in the town all of her life mentioned that people were a little worried when this place was announced to be built, because the property had been rumored to be a Native American burial ground years in the past. I have zero way to prove or disprove if that is accurate, but given the events getting more serious as time went on, it made me wonder. That day when the power did come back, despite several steps I took, like unplugging all the equipment to make sure the surge wouldn't fry stuff, we lost several pieces of expensive equipment. Some of that equipment was critical and caused major operational problems for weeks until it could be replaced. The first winter after we opened was the coldest in years. So cold that we had to buy space heaters for the servers in the electrical room so the servers wouldn't freeze. We had issues with frozen pipes, especially in the truck care center and the restaurant. 6 months after opening was the first death. A truck driver came in to take a shower in one of the shower rooms, and we had sensors on the doors that let us know how long someone had been in there. If the timer had been going on for a couple of hours, we would knock on the door to see if maybe they had left so we could clean it for the next driver. One of our employees knocked on the door of a shower that had been in use for a couple of hours, and there wasn't an answer. She had used the key to open the door, and the driver was on the floor. He had died of a stroke. He had been driving a semi-truck 30 minutes before he entered that room, and the employee who had opened the door was significantly traumatized. The company did a great job of offering support for her, but she didn't last much longer after that. A few weeks later was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. I was working on the restaurant side of the truck stop as the restaurant manager had quit after a series of bad things happened to her. They asked me to move into the role temporarily. The assistant manager on the store side came over because the freakiest thing had just happened. She pulled me into the store side office and pulled up the cameras to show me what happened. A small four-door sedan pulled into the lot but didn't pull into the gas station side. It pulled into the truck stop side where the semi-trucks pull in. He parked next to the maintenance shed, which is located adjacent to the main building and very close to a large trash compactor. He got out of the vehicle, opened one of the doors, and pulled out a trash bag. He threw the trash bag on top of the compactor, then got in his car and left the property. I don't remember exactly how long he was gone, as we had fast-forwarded the footage of him going up to the compactor. But I think it was an hour or two later when this guy returned. He pulled right back up next to the compactor, climbed on top of the compactor, and chucked the bag onto the roof of the maintenance shed. He then climbed down off the compactor, got in his car, and left, never to return. This was noticed by an employee who had been outside gathering trash to take to the compactor, and the maintenance shed is more of a small building or garage. It's about 20 feet by 20 feet. If the employee had not seen him throw it up there, it probably wouldn't have been noticed, maybe never, as the building was as high as a one-story building. But once the employee saw the individual leave, he went into the shed and got a ladder, and went to get the bag on top of the roof. He brought the bag inside the store to show the assistant manager. Inside of the bag was a ton of paper. The documents listed hundreds, if not thousands, of addresses across the United States. Under each address was a specific hidden location on each property where a body could be found. There was no information on who the individuals were, just the sex and location of the individual or individuals on the properties. The locations spanned from coast to coast, but I didn't get a chance to look deeply into them. I was really freaked out, and I thought that even touching them would contaminate something, so we just put what we had pulled out back into the bag. The obvious answer there was to call the police, so that's what happened next. Now, the thing about truck stops is that they are more often than not in remote locations along interstates for obvious reasons. The town this truck stop is located in has 3 police officers total. It's a town with less than 1,000 people. So when I say the chief of police showed up, it's because he was the highest-ranking officer of the 3 in the town. He hated us as truck stops always bring crime, and suddenly he had a lot more work to do. But he came in, watched the footage, and looked into the bag. And the most frustrating thing here is that he wasn't concerned in the slightest. He asked us what we wanted him to do about it, that it was probably just a prank, etc. He did take the items with him, filled out a form for request for the footage, and then left. My hope here is that he at least forwarded things to the FBI. A couple of weeks after this, there was a body found of a bound, nude, and recently deceased man across the street at a dump. Because it was a dump, they had no idea where the individual had originated from. And sometime in the following weeks was the second death on the property. It was a driver that had died in his truck. And somewhere in the middle of all this, we had another severe storm, and the interstate high-rise sign was destroyed once again. We had another weird incident involving abandoned things, but this one had a resolution. A driver came in to show us that someone had left ratchet straps and small children's clothing folded up neatly next to a diesel pump. The combination of these items was alarming to me, so I got on the camera system and then called the police. I was able to find the truck that left the items, and luckily I got one of the amazing officers in town this time, who actually did her job, and she followed up with me to let me know that she had found the driver and called him. He had his kid in the truck for a while for summer break, but it had ended, so he had brought her home with her mom and wasn't going to see his kid for a while. So when he was cleaning out his truck, he had this clothing and some straps he didn't need and thought someone else could use the items. But he didn't think about the combination of the two raising eyebrows, and he honestly was really grateful that somebody would be worried and followed up just in case. A couple of months after the first year mark, the state DOT had to shut down the off and on ramp to the interstate exits as it started to collapse, and they were worried that the overpass would collapse as well. We had no business for weeks as construction crews rebuilt the ramps and repaired the overpass. It was during this time that I earned a promotion to general manager and was moved to a different location. I kept in touch with those folks for a while, especially with my former boss and the assistant manager. And I'm told the incidences continued. A couple of months after I left, there were 2 major incidents, but I can't remember which came first. One involved an individual that entered the building with a machete. He was aggressive, and the employees were terrified. I wish I hadn't deleted it, but there is footage of state troopers coming in armed and drop-kicking the guy. Unsure where this person came from as he walked, this location was 10 to 15 miles from the nearest town. The second was a customer who attacked a teenage cashier because he didn't get the customer's lotto ticket correct, and then got into a brawl with the maintenance guy who came to the kid's defense. Slowly over time, I lost touch with everyone, and they both left the location, so I stopped getting the stories. I don't know if they are continuing. Haunted? Portal to hell? I don't know. But what I do know is I now avoid truck stops like the plague. Ski Masks in September by Anonymous. This happened to me about 5-ish years ago when I lived on campus in college. I tell the story every now and then to remind myself how lucky I got, frankly. I was walking home from a friend's dorm around 10 or 11 at night. My dorm was across campus, which was only a few blocks, about a 10-minute walk. As soon as I left the building and got about a half block up the street, I heard a car coming up behind me. It was an old beater, cream or tan paint, and it was rusty, and it started to drive at my walking speed. Initially, I thought it was going to stop at the upcoming stop sign, but it followed me straight through. It was driving at exactly my walking speed, so I could watch it directly out of the corner of my eye. It was on an exact pace, enough that if the window was open or it was daytime, I could have looked at the driver directly in the face by just looking straight sideways. I started walking faster, but at the end of this block there was a small parking lot, maybe 10 spaces or so, and it was in between 2 buildings. As I was about to walk across where the sidewalk crossed the entrance to this lot, the car sped into a turn and into the lot, effectively cutting me off from going further down the road, and it parked in the closest spot to me. I don't know why, but the choice my brain made was to walk straight in front of the car across the parking lot to the main lawn of the campus, rather than continuing down the sidewalk. But that meant I had to cross right in front of the car, and when I looked in the windshield, it was completely black and I couldn't see anything. Just as I finished crossing past the car, just past in line with the driver's door, the inside light came on, and in the car were 2 men. I'm assuming men because of the large stature of both, as well as the fact that I'm feminine. They were wearing ski masks in the driver and passenger seats. They got out of the car and were wearing black snow pants and black winter coats. It was September and still about 70 degrees outside. They started walking after me in perfect unison, once again matching my pace and speed. I was watching over them over my shoulder as I was walking. I don't know why I wasn't running. They were big dudes, but they were also wearing huge winter clothes, so they looked like monsters as they followed me across the empty main lawn. Right at the center of the main lawn, they stopped dead in their tracks and stared right at me for a long time. And this is what finally set me off for some reason, and I finally ran the last stretch across the lawn. When I looked back, they were gone, which was even scarier, so I sprinted the last half of a block and ran up into my dorm. I told my roommate, and we called campus security, and they were sort of like, whatever, we'll check it out. But then 10 minutes later, the head of the shift called me back and asked for descriptions. All I could say was, big dudes in full black snow gear. I never got a follow-up or an answer, but the city I was in did have a huge sex trafficking problem. So at this point, I'm just sort of willing to let it go, and be thankful nothing happened to me. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode of Uncle Josh's True Scary Stories. If you have a true scary story of any nature that you'd like to hear narrated on my channel or my podcast, email it to unclejosh.truescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Share it with your friends. Leave a comment below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And you can follow me on social media. All the links to that are in the description. If you'd like to take your support of this channel even further, there's a link to my Patreon page, as well as my storefront at tpublic.com. Get yourself some Uncle Josh and Campfire Crew merchandise. Everyone, thanks for responding to my picture of the eclipse. I gotta tell you, it was pretty dope. We did have clouds in my area, so it was not as spectacular as elsewhere. The truth is, I just wanted to see how dark everything would get, and holy shit, that was rad. I mean, literally, everything plunged into darkness. All of the birds where I was in an extremely rural area got quiet. A bald eagle was flying around. We do have bald eagles out there. That was cruising around, checking things out, which was pretty cool. You could barely see that in the sky. And then everything to come right back to being bright light and sunshine again was pretty cool. And my daughter said, "Dad, this is really spooky," which made my day. Anyway, if you got to see it in person, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's not going to happen around here in my area for another 125 years, so happy that I got to see it. And as I mentioned, please enjoy this song from my friend's band Murder. I hope you guys dig it. It's an awesome video and a great song. Everyone, be excellent to each other. And until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.
Have faith in me, 'cause I won't let you down. When I look into your eyes, I can tell that you're afraid. I don't wanna be the one to go and make our history erase all the things you said to me, 'cause I can't let you go. I can be there for you, please have faith in me. You up and never let you down. I got so much left to give. In the end, I'm such a mess. Have faith in me, 'cause I won't let you down. Every thought worth having is a habit you let go. Oh, 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 oh. in me. Oh, faith in me. Today I ask to be found. Gotta pick you up and never let you down. I got some life left to give. In the end I'm such a mess. Have faith in me, 'cause I won't let you